Okay, well now I'm very, very pleased to be introducing, she'll appear on the Zoom screen, so you'll get get your neck warmed up today. Introducing Chelsea Kelly. She's a senior consultant to the Assembly Education Committee. She has such deep expertise. I don't have a single conversation with her where I don't walk away thinking, wow, she is really smart and she knows a lot, and she loves to have conversations with us. She knows our world, I think, in many ways. So she's been a longtime supporter of SPAN. She was here at the very, very first SPAN that we did, where we, learned so much from her, and always look forward to hearing what she has to say. So she'll give us a little bit of an overview about where legislation is in the policy cycle, and then I think she's just going to tell us some things that are happening in her world that would be of interest to us. So Chelsea, without further ado, I will turn the stage over to you. And welcome.
Hello, can you all see me now? Yes,
Not
okay.
Quite. Oh, yep, now we can. Thank you.
Okay, very lovely to be with all of you again. You, like Pia's, I appreciate Pia's welcome. That was so very kind. And I really do look forward to visiting with you all every year. It's been, like Pia said, a number of years so far. And then I always like to tell the story because 2 years ago, your conference was the very first Zoom conference I had ever attended right when the pandemic started. So it's lovely to be back with you again. And hopefully maybe next year, I'll be back in person with you. So first I wanted to talk about what's happening in the budget. Many of you may already be aware of this, but we have a lot of one-time money in the K-12 education space. My focus is on K-12, right? So this is my issue area, obviously spans between K-12 and higher ed, but my focus today will be on the K-12 bill proposals and the K-12 budget as they relate to you all. So we have a lot of K-12 one-time funds we see coming down the pike. So you are going to see a lot of proposals, and I'll talk about some today, that are going to use those one-time funds to support the teaching profession. So both to recruit more teachers and to help retain more teachers. That is the message that we have been sending to members this year. Please don't start new programs that make teachers or schools do things that they are not prepared to do. And if you're going to start a new program, make it very long into the future. Make sure that there's a long lead time so that schools are not forced to implement new programs right away, and that those funds, even if they're one-time funds, span a very long period of time, 8 years, 10 years even, so that the one-time funds can be stretched out over time and not made to be implemented immediately. We have a very strong, the legislature has a very, very strong interest in seeing your teacher prep programs expand capacity. We are hearing that your programs are starting to get wait lists, for example, and we would like to see those programs expand. So I actually have a request for you. It would be very helpful for me, and if you want to coordinate through Pia or someone else to get this information back to me, but it would be very helpful for me to know in each of your programs, how many applicants are you turning away due to capacity? And where are they enrolling instead? If you know that information, that would be extremely helpful for us in making the case at the state level that we need to prioritize teacher prep program capacity building. Okay, so next I'm going to talk about the bills that I see coming down the pike that might be of interest to you. The first is AB 1675. This is a bill that deals with out-of-state teacher credentials, specifically for military spouses. It allows military spouses to get their preliminary credential with just a background check and their credential instead of having to wait for their transcripts to come from their university. Excuse me. The second bill is AB 1893. This bill would waive the CBEST for 1 year for substitute teachers. This bill is trying to get at the very acute shortage that we saw in January, where some districts had up to or more than 100 certificated staff vacancies each day, and we're pulling from administrative staff. They were pulling from every single corner of their school districts to get those classrooms staffed. And then in addition, they were asking parents, my own district included, asked parents to sign up to be substitute teachers. But as you know, the CBEST or getting your coursework evaluated takes time, right? And so they were in an immediate need at that moment. And so this bill would waive CBEST for 1 year for substitute teachers in case we find ourselves in the same situation. The next bill is AB 1895. This bill is really focused on professionalizing the substitute teaching force. Again, we've had a long-standing shortage of substitute teachers, and this has only been exacerbated by COVID. And so, again, would be using one-time funds. It would be a grant program to use one-time funds to provide professional development for subs, to create innovative programs like countywide sub pools, or maybe I've heard of other school districts permanently stationing substitute teachers at individual school sites. So like, you know, I'm the sub for Sierra Oaks Elementary and all the kids know me and I'm the first sub who's called, et cetera, et cetera. So it would allow districts to sort of mix and match how they want to professionalize the substitute teaching pool in their district. The next bill is AB 2401. This will expand the integrated programs, the integrated teacher prep programs to include TK in the teacher prep programs. You might recall years ago we had those, I think it was $250,000 for startup grants for universities to expand or implement an integrated teacher prep program. And this would just expand it to the same teacher prep programs that were included before, but then in addition add TK. The next bill is AB 2694. This bill will provide funding for induction for teachers, again using one-time funds, but over a long number of years to provide funding for induction so that teachers are not paying for that out of pocket, which is still occurring. And then the last bill I'll talk about is AB 2047. This bill is currently a spot bill, so if you looked at what it does today, it's not going to tell you, but it will create a credentialing task force, which I assume that means a working group at the commission. But more importantly, and more related to you all, is that it will eliminate the teacher performance assessment. And I would love feedback from all of you on this particular proposal. We have not decided when it would be heard, but if you have feedback for me on that proposal, I would love to hear from you. So that's my update. I'm happy to answer any questions or give any other background that you would like to hear.
Thank you, Chelsea. So I've never actually done this before, and can we keep her on the screen if that was okay? Thank you. So I'm going to scan the room for questions, and then I'm going to pause, and I'm going to let Nicole tell us if there are questions in the chat. So we'll sort of alternate questions in the room, questions in the chat. Yes, we have a question in the room. I'll say it and then I'll, yeah, you say it and then I'll repeat it. Chelsea, I think your last AB 2047 bill might have generated a lot of interest. Maybe we'll do something very systematic and try to get back to you at the end of the conference. But the comment was basically, if we were to get rid of any assessment, and I heard a amen over to my right, we'd rather have it be the RECA than the TPA. But we will, Cindy, Nicole, and I will think about some way of getting some organized feedback from folks so that you have that.
I would appreciate that. I would also say that I believe, and I apologize if I am incorrect, I believe we had a bill last year that moved, created a progression to get rid of the RECA and move the RECA into the TPA. So that's why this idea of now eliminating the TPA is, it raises a lot of questions, because we have eliminated a lot of the other exams, and now the TPA is sort of the last one standing in some respects. And so, you know, it raises a lot of questions for me. So I would appreciate any and all feedback.
Okay. Is there a question in the chat? Okay. The question is, when we say TPA, are we talking about Cal TPA or Ed TPA? So the TPA is a standard in our program standards, the teaching performance assessment. There's 3, or I can't remember, maybe 4 options. So TPA is, the bill is talking about the entire concept, regardless of the version.
That is correct. Yeah. Although I would really appreciate feedback on those 2 different programs, because when I talked to so the sponsor of this bill is the California Faculty Association. And when I spoke to the Faculty Association, they brought up a lot of concerns about Pearson's taking over the grading of the TPA, the Ed TPA, and that has created, apparently this happened just like 3 or 4 years ago, is my understanding. And that has created a lot of consternation, because the number of teachers who are passing after Pearson's took over the grading has gone down. And so if that's the case, then I would love to hear your ideas about, should we instead be encouraging people to do the Cal TPA? Is the Cal TPA graded by somebody different, not Pearson's? Like, these are questions I have for all of you, actually.
Okay, and I think those are easy questions to answer. So why don't we see if there are, and we'll do it. We'll do it when
You're doing a great job, Ia.
We'll do it when we send you our feedback. I'm wondering if there's any other questions for Chelsea. So just to recap, because I know sometimes the last thing is the thing everybody starts thinking about. That was a pretty significant piece of information she gave us, however. But there's the AB 1675, military spouses can begin a credential program without a transcript. We have waiving the CBEST as a requirement for substitutes for 1 year. They still have to have a bachelor's degree, if I understood that correctly.
Yes.
We have professional learning programs for substitute teachers to kind of professionalize and give support to that group of people, which we all hope will expand. And then we have AB 2401, expanding integrated programs to include preparation for TK positions. And then finally, AB 2694, funding for induction. And according to Chelsea, these are all one-time funds, but they have multi-year timelines. Thank you so much. That makes things so much saner, and it makes it so much easier for us to be able to plan and collaborate with our partners. Yes, Steve. I will paraphrase the question, and you let me know if I get it right. So the question was really, and it's a question that often comes up because our ecosystem is complex, right? But it is an ecosystem. So the question is, for some of the funding, what is the role imagined for community colleges, particularly around the integrated programs to include TK? And can they be part of the horizon when the legislature is thinking about funding educator preparation? I added something there, Steve.
So as you might be aware, we have had bills in years past that would expand teacher preparation to the community college level. I can only speak for my chair. My chair made it very clear publicly that he does not support expanding teacher preparation to the community college level, though there is always interest in creating pathways to community college students transferring into the CSU to complete their teacher prep program. I know that's a controversial thing to say, but I'm just being honest about where my chair is at the moment.
Thank you, Chelsea. Is there a question in the chat? No questions in the chat. All right. Other questions for Chelsea? Yes.
And I'm going to get this mic to you. My question is kind of procedural about the CBEST for substitutes, because I know a lot of our programs require passage of the CBEST for admissions or very shortly after entering the programs. So is that going to put us, you know, if you sub one time, do you then qualify for that extension, right? So I'm thinking in terms of how we track our candidates and passing the CBEST and some of those, you know, those gatekeeper, we use that CBEST as kind of a gate for students. They have to pass this before they can move on in the program. But if they have a year, then that could affect that. And I'm just wondering how that might work or how that might be considered.
Ooh, thank you so much for I heard that.
Okay.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. I had not thought about that. That seems kind of like a loophole there. That I don't think that's the author's intent. The author's really intent here is just for people who are subbing only, not for teacher prep candidates to be waiving CBEST. Really trying to get at that acute situation that happened in January where districts wanted parents to sub and they couldn't immediately walk in the door because they had to jump through this CBEST hoop, even if they had a bachelor's degree. So thank you for that comment, and I will, I'm writing it down because I will look into it.
Yeah, if I could editorialize on that, I would say, I think because we were one of the institutions that we have processed now hundreds of basic skills forms via coursework. We have a process down, but every time we do one, I think, why isn't a bachelor's degree enough to prove that they have basic skills? So I would actually go the opposite route. And maybe it's an ed code. I see Mary's hand going up, but I would actually say that I think that how you keep candidates in and out of your program, maybe there's a different way to do it. But I think that it's just something we're thinking about. It seems foolish, speaking perfectly honestly. Mary.
So there are currently 9 different ways in which a candidate can demonstrate basic skills competence. One of those is by passing coursework and during their baccalaureate or undergraduate coursework that at a B or better in reading, writing, and mathematics. So my question, Chelsea, is this bill clearly is going to focus on eliminating or suspending the basic skills requirement, not just the test. So any and all forms for substitute teachers only. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that we all understood that. So
yes, this is just for subs only, just to get away from all of the methods of satisfying the basic skills requirement take time. And if we find ourselves in the situation we were in January where we don't have that time, that would be the purpose of this bill, is to waive it for subs only for 1 year in case we encounter that same situation.
Thank you.
Yeah,
yes.
We do have a question from your virtual attendees, but it's someone who would like to be able to actually voice their question as our in-person attendees. So I'm going to ask if Patricia, if you can give Kelly Vaughn unmute permissions on her mic, please.
Thanks very much, everybody. You know what, I asked for feedback, but I think, Nicole, you said here that additional feedback on the topic of eliminating CalTPA, it would be post-conference. Is that, I just wanted to clarify. Oh,
yes,
yeah,
and I are working questions into the end of conference survey, and that will come out and you can provide that feedback, and then Pia will make sure that that's passed directly to Chelsea.
Okay, all right. Yeah, because if it was for feedback, now I do have huge concerns about Pearson managing either Cal TPA or Ed TPA, just based on the data I've been collecting with my own candidates. So
good. And specifically when you give me feedback, if you have ideas for how to deal with that Pearson issue, I would appreciate any and all ideas.
Okay, I actually have, I have recorded, not recorded, but I have case studies for my own candidates of inconsistent scoring issues that have been rectified, and I've been saving them over the last 4 years. So I'd be happy to share them with you, including what the second scoring was, what the rationale was between the inconsistent first and second scoring. And I'm having 2 right now that's in I guess in petition, even though they're requiring our candidates to pay for it, for the petition fee or the audit fee or whatever they call it, the reassessment fee.
Yeah.
These are definite issues because again, my candidates, they have limited budgets and they're working in their communities, and for them to pay, we're going to end up paying for it, but these are just some of the huge issues I have with Pearson managing this.
Yeah, so this was the first actually I had heard of this Pearson issue, was just when the Faculty Association came to me just a couple of weeks ago. So that's why I have a lot of questions, because I don't have solutions to offer them for alternatives to eliminating the TPA completely, which I will tell you my chair is not supportive of that. He's told me that already. I just don't know if there are other alternatives that we should maybe consider. And so that's the feedback that would be especially helpful to me.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, everybody. So you're going to get some questions at the end of conference survey. Start thinking. Please complete the survey. It's very, very important that we sort of share our perspectives. And I've heard Chelsea say a number of times, and some possible solutions with Chelsea and her member and her committee. Any other questions, comments? Yes, Kimberly, hi.
That you can carry this message back to your chair, that the private, independent, not-for-profits are here as partners as well. We credential 50% of the teachers in the state of California, and I'm just referring to your comment where you said your chair is thinking about the community colleges as a pipeline into the CSUs. We too also have transfer agreements, so think of us as well as partners.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. So as always, it's been so wonderful to have you as a partner in this work, Chelsea. Thank you for all of your expertise and being so gracious and willing to share with us every year. We hope next year we're back in person, and we will see the fate of some of these bills. Can you just tell us in closing what happens next? So should we be writing representatives? Should we be checking bill trackers? What happens next to some of these bills?
So all of these bills have been or will be referred to the Assembly Education Committee. I didn't even talk about the Senate bills. I apologize. I omitted that. But these bills will come to the Assembly Education Committee. If you have either a personal position on these, you can submit a letter as an individual. If your institution is interested in submitting a letter on behalf of their institution, you can do that through our letter portal, which is on our committee's website. And those letters will then be listed in our analysis. We will start hearing bills on March 23rd. That's our first hearing, and we will hear bills until the end of April, these bills until the end of April. So that's your time frame, March 23rd through the end of April. All of these bills will either be heard or the chair could decide not to hear them as well. But I do really appreciate your feedback, and Pia knows I call her when I have questions. And so we have sort of this TPA bill is a big one. And so we'll have a lot more conversations, and I appreciate all of the feedback.
Thank you, Chelsea. How about a round of applause for our friend in the legislature? Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. I think I'm good. Okay. All right, friends. Wow. Wonder what's happening in the Senate. And I mean, it's a very interesting time. It was such a difficult time, and there was so much fear, I think, at the beginning of COVID that economies would collapse, and that hasn't really happened in California. So in addition to all of the interesting flexibilities that have been put in place, there's also money. So Golden State Teacher Award, which maybe the CTC panel will talk to us about, different kinds of potential professional development money that will go to districts that we and universities can help districts spend in terms of additional authorizations, credentials, subject areas added to credentials. So it's a very interesting, exciting time to be doing this work. So we're going to transition now into taking a look at the data that was collected through our second annual Cal Council survey. And if you were one of the people, I know all your hands are going to go up. If you were one of the people that helped push the survey link out, then give yourselves a round of applause because your efforts really helped us to get some interesting perspectives from the field. I'm going to actually let Nicole talk a little bit about the sort of high-level survey analysis. The Real Lab that she co-directs has really been a significant, important partner in this work. They can turn the analysis around really quickly, even when we're delayed on getting the survey out. So I'm very, very grateful to her and her colleagues. So she'll talk a little bit about the survey. We're going to give you ways to access 3 important documents. One is the data analysis from the survey. The other is the talking points, which we'll review and then rehearse today. And then finally, a way to sign up for legislative visits. So Nicole, I'm going to turn the screen over to you.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully my screen share is working okay for everyone there.
It is working.
Great. So thanks to our Real Lab team for all of the work put in to the analysis of the survey. Thank you to the policy committee for feedback, your expertise when it came to constructing the questions and coming up with this year's focus. We had almost 400 responses by the time of our analyses, 397 specifically. You'll see that this year we had a strong participation from our university and college faculty, and that includes university supervisors as well as adjunct professors, full-time faculty. And then we did have participation from educator candidates in their preparation program, as well as students or current in-service teachers. And this gives you just a bit of an idea of who responded to the survey. So we did have more women as anticipated than our men participants. We did have, as far as sorry for the typo on here. This should actually not say gender again. You all know that's race, not gender. But this is just giving you an idea of who actually participated in the survey. And then what we found to be interesting was really looking closely at the number of years of someone's time in the field and looking at that in relationship to how they identify. So you'll see that we have participants 1 to 5 years. If you look across the top row and the top table, you get an idea of what the field looks like as far as our newer teachers. And then as you move down and look at the 21 plus years, you have a chance to see even more clearly what our field looks like as far as years of experience and the relationship to race and ethnicity. Years in your current position was also fascinating. So we know that the pandemic called for us to pivot. If you look at, and we're looking at the top table here, and we're looking at number of years in your current position. So someone who is in their current position, let's say they've been in the field and the profession itself for 21 plus years. And then we look at the number of years in your current position. Of those who have been in this profession for 21 plus years, only 23% have been in their same current role that they're in now. So we're seeing that no matter how long you've been in the field, you've been a K-12 teacher, that pivots were necessary, that you likely were pulled from the classroom or you were placed back in the classroom. So that would be something important for us to disaggregate later, is to find out what the change was specifically. Was it a change from being in the classroom to being at district, or the other way around? And Pia will provide later some key talking points that contextualize the data that I'm kind of giving you a high overview of. This is responses from our university faculty, our educator preparation faculty, and their perspectives. They do feel supported when it comes to providing instruction for their learners. And if you look at these, we've tried to organize them in terms of agreement, the level of agreement and high levels of agreement related to feeling supported in general. But implementing culturally relevant curriculum and instruction, it was nice to see that there was agreement there, that there is a feeling of support coming from colleagues and just coming from their institution, campus leadership, et cetera. Similar questions were asked of the pre-service candidates. We also wanted their perspective on how they feel supported. They feel supported by site-based mentors. You see that's at 100% in their assessment choices. They feel supported in their instructional planning. They also do feel supported in implementing culturally relevant curricula. As we move down, when it comes to unpacking and or integrating ethnic studies in their practice, 72% feel supported or agree with the level of support. And then there are some that are still feeling as though they need more support with unpacking the framework. So just to kind of tease this out a little bit and look a bit more closely at current educators and then our candidates when it comes to the ethnic studies framework, you can see here on the left side that current educators, as far as the question goes on how their program is preparing them or whether it's preparing current or future educators to unpack the framework, there is agreement. But there's also, I'd say you're about 50%, a little more than 50%, almost 60% on agreement, but on disagreement, we're close to 40%. Candidates themselves, as far as having access to professional learning, we're seeing that they do have access to it, but we can do a bit more in terms of giving them greater access to their professional learning opportunities related to the ethnic studies framework. I have access to professional learning to support. This is just disaggregating by multiple subjects, single subject, and then special education. We felt that was important because as a single subject candidate, you may have greater access to your learning around the ethnic studies framework, possibly, or I'm sorry, excuse me. Yes, and then you may have less depending on what your discipline is. If you're a multiple subject candidate, it may be specific to your, a specific methods class as opposed to being weaved throughout. So here you can see that multiple subject candidates disagree with having the access that they need. And then as we were thinking, there were more single subject candidates that felt that they did have access to the professional learning. We asked a bit about challenges again this year. So last year, if you remember, we asked what were some of the challenges when it came to the pandemic and the pivot. We still see that the challenges are related to supporting students' social emotional well-being. We did have a high percentage of educators saying that it is a little bit harder than it was last year to actually be an educator during this time. And so Pia will talk more about what this means for what we can share, how this informs policy, but I can just kind of also show you how the concerns around social isolation, we have fewer concerned, but still 69% agree that this is still a concern. And then here are some of the quotes. It's always nice, we see the quantitative data, but to hear the voice of the respondents, I think is important. So you'll see, and this is captured directly from the responses. So the caps are not me putting these in caps. This is someone else putting this in caps and saying burnout, long hours, high stress, low compensation as a concern. We also several times see it noted, teachers still not being listened to, system tasking them with the job of 9 people, often creating tons of work without pay. The bright spots, young people are coming into the profession that are more representative of the children in the classroom. So the demographic gap between teachers and students, we're seeing that decrease slowly. And that's considered a bright spot to our educators and our teacher preparation faculty. The push for diversity, equity, and inclusion university-wide, from hiring practice all the way through to classroom instruction, is another bright spot. and then actively creating change in our communities, and also getting to know students better. These are some of the rewards and some of the bright spots during this time. And finally, just wanted to show you as far as future plans, this is promising. But again, Pia will contextualize this a bit more for us as we move into the talking points. When asked whether they intend to stay in the profession for at least 5 years, 100% of respondents said yes, they intend to stay. Are you eager to earn your credential and then pursue your first position? 93% said yes. And are you comfortable recommending others to the profession? 78% said yes. So interesting findings here. Our lab will continue to do additional analyses, especially as it pertains to like regression. For example, we've talked about looking at whether or not you have exposure to professional learning and ethnic studies framework. Does that inform how you feel in terms of your ability to implement it? So we want to look at relationships between those variables, and we'll follow up in the final report with those details. Pia, I'm passing back over to you.
Sorry, folks, we're having a little bit of technical difficulty. So let me talk a little bit about what we're going to do right now. I'm going to, thank you, present a set of talking points that we derived from the data that Nicole just showed to you all. We actually have QR codes for you all to access her presentation, the talking points, and the sign-up sheet for the legislative visits, but I just cannot figure out how to like get it into the PowerPoint presentation. So hopefully our friends in the back can help us do that. And I'm just going to move on with the talking points and hope that gets resolved.
Okay, well,
So-
Pia, we'll just advance to that slide first for you. And
Perfect.
then we'll
Okay,
see if we
okay.
can-
All right, thank you so much. See, they already came up with a solution. All right, so those 3 QR codes, you will take out your phones. And if you were like me a year ago, or hopefully you were not like me a year ago where I did not have a phone who could do this. Hopefully your phone can access each one of those codes. The first code is the talking points, which we're going to go into next. The next code is the legislative visits schedule. Thank you again, Sarah Johnson, for putting that together. You can go into that Google Sheet and put your name on the session that you want to attend. And then the final code is the survey data. And that's really just for your reference. We're not going to be presenting it during the ledge visits. Thank you. Okay, and for the folks who are on Zoom, it's a much easier, this is one of the things that we'll miss about Zoom, right? Just being able to like drop a link into the chat and then everybody can get it. The other thing that you could do if you are having a hard time with the QR code is you can just, on your computer, just type in the bit.ly and then that'll take you to the same location.
Yeah, do you want me just to share screen with your slides? Would that help?
I think we have that all queued up. We just couldn't get this slide into the talking points presentation. Thank you though, Nicole.
Okay.
She's funny. She's like a disembodied voice, isn't she? Sort of coming. Yeah. All right. So everybody good? The most important thing you need right now is really just the talking points. All right, everybody good? Okay, perfect. All right, I'm going to actually ask that we advance the presentation and then we'll come around during, you're going to have time to actually rehearse this exercise. So we'll come around and see if we can't help you at that point. That would be me actually. So don't mean to make anybody feel poorly about that. So these are the talking points. As I'm going through the slides, I'd like you all to kind of be connecting the information on the slides with what you just saw about the survey data, and then thinking about your own stories. So is there a candidate for whom there is an experience that brings this particular data point to life? Is there something happening with one of your partner schools, in one of your classes, that kind of thing? So while we do ask in the talking points that you try to stick as much as closely as possible to the script, we do know that a personal story can bring these words on a page to life. And part of what we're trying to do with the legislative conversations tomorrow is establish a connection with that staff member or the policymaker, so that they think, oh, I'd really like to follow up with Rosemary. She had told me that compelling story about one of her candidates. So we start off with a slide about Cal Council. Who are we? What do we do? Why are we engaging in these conversations? We'll welcome the policy guest and let him or her know that we have specific goals for the meeting. We want to introduce them to our organization, and let them know sort of the two worlds that we live in and the kinds of information and people that we have access to. And then we're going to share information from our survey so that they can sort of understand what's happening out in the K6 or K, I guess, 16 plus world of in-service teachers, pre-service teachers, in-service school counselors, pre-service schools counselors, and then the university faculty that prepares them. Did I point this at something? Can you advance the slide, please? Thank you. All right, so this is sort of the presentation at the beginning of the presentation. So California educators speak, and we give a credit to the Real Lab, and we sort of frame sort of our three themes: students' needs, educators' needs, and the state of the profession. Could advance the slide. Okay, then a little bit about the survey. So we administered it to our network, how many respondents, a breakdown by the type of educator that they are or will be, and then a slide on, if you could advance, just the demographics of the survey respondents. After that, we start talking about some of our themes. So one theme is to balance academic growth or focus on academic growth with robust support and community building out in our schools and also in our own classrooms as university educators. A high proportion of respondents expressed concern about students' emotional well-being and also about their contextual instability. So housing instability, income instability, food insecurity, those kinds of things. And a high proportion of the respondents also indicated that they were feeling challenged to meet these needs of their students. And so one sort of leave behind is if we focus on learning loss and catching up at the expense of really creating a sense of community and helping people ease back into the educational enterprise, then we're going to increase stress and potentially push both educators and students out. Next slide.
Do you have the large things right on the top of that remote?
Oh, yeah. There you go. Thank you. All right. So the next sort of takeaway is, and we heard it in the bills that Chelsea shared with us, right? So we can sort of compliment them for all of the money that they're putting into professional learning and then reinforce how important it is. So educators need substantial professional learning, especially if we want them to be increasingly effective with our diverse learners. So don't stop with providing opportunities for learning how to do culturally relevant instruction, but really sort of ramp up the system that's supporting ethnic studies curriculum and also pedagogy. And we feel like it's important to sort of stress both, that it's not just a 9th grade class. You can actually have an ethnic studies orientation in other grades. So you can see some of the recommendations there. There is a bill that we just learned about, and I think CCTE was instrumental in this. So if anybody is part of CCTE that's here, can you raise your hand? Okay, well, I was going to use you as a resource, but they are working with this group of legislators to support a bill around mostly how English language learners are identified and how that's tied to funding in the LCAP. So I sort of stuck it down there in that bullet. The next idea, and you heard it also from Chelsea, so it's good that we're in sync. I think we can, again, compliment them for sort of supporting things that really need to be supported, is just to focus equally on retention as on recruitment. So in the survey data, we saw that there was sort of a bimodal distribution, particularly for certain ethnic groups that responded to the survey. So we have very new educators and we have very senior educators. They both need different things, and it's really important that the system keep them both in the system. And the system also needs the middle group to be kept into the system. So a lot of sort of emphasis on just professional development, other kinds of support opportunities, sabbaticals, whatever it might be. I think just throw some ideas out there so that we help the legislators understand it's not just about salaries, but it's also about working conditions and levels of satisfaction. Again, on this theme, so I was really struck by actually not this one, I was struck by the next one, but it's no surprise that such a high percentage of folks feel like this year was more challenging than last year. And so we sort of identified some other things for legislators to continue to think about. It sounds like they are thinking about some of these things, but flexibility, building community, and providing some relief valves when people are feeling overburdened. And then the final issue on focus as much on retention as recruitment is just this idea of just the commitment and the enthusiasm that these pre-service educators have. Quite frankly, it's amazing to me. I'm really, really in awe of them. And I think we cannot take that for granted. We have to make sure that their on-ramp into the profession is as robustly supported as possible. And I think we heard of some interesting bills, like the fact that they would not have to pay for induction. Those are some very, very important things to emphasize with the legislatures, that they got it right and that there needs to be more of those kinds of policy supports put into place. Finally, so increased funding for high quality and subsidized pathways. So Golden State Teacher Grant, other kinds of opportunities like that. Increased funding for new educator preparation faculty so that credential programs can meet the labor force needs. AB 1701 is a bill that's just been proposed around bilingual education faculty. Remember that schools are ecosystems, so we cannot forget the counselors and the social workers and the school psychologists that make the learning more possible for students and the teaching more possible for teachers. Professional learning for all educators around ethnic studies, content and pedagogy, and then finally, new credentialing opportunities for in-service educators. So they have lots of opportunities to grow what they can do and what they know how to do. And that's it. So your task now is to, at your table, start looking through the talking point slides again and trying to make this presentation your own. So you're going to get familiar with the slides. You're going to think about specific examples that you might share, and you're going to just get comfortable talking about the data from the survey and sort of making your pitch or your point. So we have, oh gosh, we're right on schedule. That's so great. That rarely happens in my life. So we have about 25 minutes as we're going to work on this until 11:45. I think at your tables, you can organize this, and in the Zoom room, you can organize this in any way that you would like. If you want to just access the talking point slides, read through them, sort of have some quiet time to think a little bit, and then talk in your groups about how you might approach it tomorrow. That would be terrific. We understand you're not going to be in these groups tomorrow. So it's just a chance to sort of bounce some ideas off each other, get some feedback, create a plan. Yes, Bettina.
As we're talking through the points. Thank you. Wow, that was quick. I got such a voice all of a sudden. So is the idea that we're projecting the PowerPoint as we're talking through the points, and then as we're done, kind of opening up for questions after that?
Exactly,
Okay, thank
exactly.
you.
So yeah, maybe, thank you. That's a good reminder. So tomorrow, so the last thing that you're going to do today is actually sign up to participate in a legislative visit. So you can either do it in the Google Doc, which is going to be easiest for our friends who are participating virtually. And then there's a poster at the back of the room where you can actually sign up for a time or to meet with somebody that you're interested in talking to. You can sign up on the poster in the back. So the way this is going to work is tomorrow is you're going to actually Zoom into a room with our policy guest. In some cases, it's an actual elected official. In some cases, it's a member of their staff. And you're going to, and sometimes they commit for an hour and then they tell us when they get there, they can only stay for 20 minutes. So we're all educators. So we will do adjustments as they come up. But the idea would be to both present the talking points PowerPoint, and then as Bettina said, take it off the screen and just have a conversation with the staff member or the policy guest. Yes. Can we what? Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So again, we have sessions starting at 9, 9:30, 10, 11, and then there's one at 12. We do our best to, so you may find on the list of folks that you could talk to, oh, well, my representative's not there. And actually, our goal is not to get you to talk with your representative, but it's actually to get us to talk to folks on key committees in the Senate and the Assembly. So that's how we start our outreach is, well, we don't do it, it's Sarah Johnson. We start by looking at who's on key committees and then going directly to those folks and asking them to meet with us. And we have a number of returning people. So I think maybe we're starting to develop a relationship there. Yes, Karen. Yes, yes. So yeah, so it's a little bit funky, but tomorrow come down, get breakfast. Maybe you want to review the talking points one more time, think about your strategy, and then go back to a quiet place. And maybe it's your hotel room, and then you're going to Zoom in from there. And then we'll all reconvene for lunch. It just seemed like the easiest way to do it. And the Capitol's under construction. And so we're not able to go there right now. Okay, so, all right, right now, now we're off schedule because I've been blabbing up here so long. So you have till 11:45 to review the talking points, start to make them your own, share strategies with people at your table. At 11:45, we'll reconvene and we'll just take any sort of last minute logistical confusion, clarification questions. And then we'll get ready for our noontime speakers. So thank you, everybody. And we'll circulate around, Cindy and I, and just to make sure that people have access to what they need. All right, rehearse. Hello, friends. It's just past 11:45. So if I could get your attention, I would appreciate that. And right now we want to talk about any questions that came up for you or that you may have, and then also go over logistics for tomorrow. And I'm wondering if I should do the logistics first. That might address some of the questions, and then we'll take more substantial or other kinds of questions. So we apologize for having some technical difficulties with the Google sign-in sheet that had no sign-in column. That's been fixed. So by the end of, let's say by the end of lunchtime, what we would love for you all to have done, both the folks in the room and the folks in the virtual room, is to have put your name into one of the cells associated with a policy discussion tomorrow or a ledge visit tomorrow. Towards the end of the day today, I will reconcile both the paper copy and the Google sheet so that there's one Google sheet with all that information. And I believe our plan is to actually send an email to all registered conference participants with the Google sheet. So you have a record of where you're supposed to be when. And then also you'll have one more time a link to the talking points and a link to the survey data. So do check your email after the reception tonight or tomorrow morning, and you should have what you need in terms of who am I talking to tomorrow with what other people associated with Cal Council. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to, tomorrow morning, you're going to click on the Zoom link that was part of your invitation to the conference, and everybody should have a Zoom link for tomorrow. Is that correct? Whether you're here or participating virtually. Yes, thank you. And you're going to go into that main room, that main Zoom room, and then you're going to be able to put yourself, you're going to join a room, just like we do for different meetings. You're going to be able to put yourself into the room associated with the person who's attending the meeting, not necessarily the elected official. All right. So tomorrow morning at your appointed time, 9:30, 10, 11, 9, you're going to go into the link that was part of your invitation to the conference. You're going to see breakout room options, and you're going to join the breakout room for the policy guests that you signed up to meet with. If you have questions, there will be Cindy, Nicole, or I, or Yesenia Jorgensen will be in the Zoom room tomorrow morning, beginning at 8:45. And then we'll also be here on site beginning at 9 o'clock for anybody that might have questions before they go into their session. The one thing that I would just say as sort of a word of encouragement, don't be afraid. You know more about this topic than the person that you're going to meet with, most likely. And you're just trying to have a conversation with people who are interested in teacher education. So I think, and just treat it as something new. We all did new things in COVID. This will be a new thing if you haven't done it before. So again, sign up for a legislative visit time, either in the Google document or on the poster in the back. We're going to reconcile those two lists, and then everybody's going to get an email tonight that has the updated Google chart, and then a link to the talking points and a link to the survey data. Tomorrow morning at your appointed time, you're going to go into the Zoom room and then join the room of the person that you signed up to talk with. Okay, there's a question in the virtual room. Any questions in the face-to-face room about logistics? Yes, Rosemary. The colors in the Google sheet don't mean anything. I mean, I think they mean like an hour block, but that's all. I think we were just, I don't know. It's don't read anything into the colors. So it's each row is a different group. Okay. Yes, Deborah. There should be, unless you would like to sign into the facilitator role. Yes. Okay, in that email. Perfect. Any questions about what you're going to do, what you're going to say, talking points? Yes, Lisa. Oh, one of the talking points says we're a large group. How many members are we in CCTE? I don't know, 600, 700, 750? Yeah. All right, well, I'm going to let Eric come up to the podium, or invite Eric to come up to the podium for a message. And then I think we will quickly get lunch, and we have a spectacular presentation for lunchtime. We're really excited.
I think our membership is actually about 500, but still mighty. Just a couple of things before we break for lunch. Our lunchtime speakers will be joining us at 12:20. So it may take a while for all of us to get through the lunch line, but please let's respect the speakers when they start at 12:20. And one thing that I forgot to mention in my thanks for the morning is I want to acknowledge Go React. Go React is out at the table in the lobby. If you don't know Go React, if you go out and look at a demo at what they have, you can get a $20 gift certificate. And even if you know, go through it again, make them give you the $20. I plan to. And the chocolate is good. And one other thing is, if you drop a business card off with them, they're having a drawing for an Apple TV. Apple TV, whatever it is, little box. So thank you, Go React, for all the support that you've given to CCTE. They're also the people that are doing all of the hosting the virtual round table something or other. So great organization. We're done with the morning session. Thank you. It looks like lunch is just about out. So that's it, and enjoy the rest of the day.